Good morning. Buenos dias. Good morning to everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for Cafecito con HACE. We love to hear from you, so please join us in the chat in telling us where you're joining us from, what location, and if you are new or already a reoccurring viewer, let us know as well. Welcome back, those reoccurring viewers, and welcome to new viewers. We're happy to have you join our HACE network. So my name is Lisandra Jimenez, and I'm a current program manager with HACE, the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement. We are a national nonprofit organization whose mission is to positively impact workplaces through cultivating the pipeline of Latino talent. We do this through providing insight, support, and access for Latino professionals to be successful in their careers. So welcome. We're happy to have you this morning. We have a great guest as always. But before we get into the conversation, we do have some announcements to share for our HACE Familia and network out there. So starting with, we have our recruitment series event happening today later on. So make sure to tune into that at 11:30 a.m. Central and join us if you're a professional who's looking for your next career opportunity. This recruitment series will be focused on communication, marketing, and sales. So if you or you know someone in your network that would be interested, let them know to check it out later today at 11:30 Central. And then also, letting you know about two of our programs that currently have applications open, two of our leadership programs. One is our Mujeres de HACE program for Latina professionals, entry-level professionals, 0 to 5 years of experience. And then we also have sort of its partner parallel program, Hombres de HACE, which we've mentioned a couple of times, will be launching as well this fall. So if you are a Latino professional that identify as male and would like to join our Hombres de HACE program, we'll talk a little bit more about that today as well. But that will be specifically for Latino professionals seeking more professional development with different cultural values, nuances, stereotypes, all different topics that impact our communities. So check those two programs out. We currently have applications open. We'll drop some links in the chat for you all to check them out as well. Particularly for our Hombres de HACE program, we do have a special scholarship for Chicago nonprofit professionals. So if you're an employee of a Chicago nonprofit organization or know others that are, please share with your network and have them join our Hombres de HACE program. We'd love to have you. All right, so getting into our conversation for today, we have our very own Emmanuel Lopez, who is HACE's Director of Strategic Initiatives and Partnerships, joining us this morning, or as we like to call him, Manny. If he's on your good side, then you can call him Manny as well. So welcome, Emmanuel. Thank you for joining us this morning. How are you doing this morning?
Thank you, Lysandra. Good morning. Hola, HACE Familia. I'm doing great. Can't complain. Sun's out. It's nice and shining over here in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And you know, our first question we always start out with is telling us, how do you like your cafecito in the morning? So guests, feel free to share in the chat. How do you like your cafecito for those of our viewers? And Emmanuel, how about you?
Well, everyone knows I'm a big coffee drinker. I usually have a 32 ounce, but today I just have a nice little mug of coffee here. I like my coffee like I like myself, cool and a little brown.
Okay. And is that your first cup this morning?
This is my first cup this morning.
No judgment if it wasn't. Sounds good. No judgment. For myself, I am team agua almost every day. So I drink a lot of water throughout the day and in the morning. My papi always got me to try to drink coffee, but it just never happened. Although I'm from a Cuban household. So I do a lot of agua throughout the day to stay hydrated. Nice. All right, Emmanuel. So getting into our conversation for today, we are bringing awareness to Men's Health Month happening this month as well. So definitely wanted to have a little bit more conversation about health in terms of our Latino males, but other communities as well. And so in that, wanted to definitely ask you a little bit about what do you think we can do within our communities to continue to break that stigma around seeking help? particularly for folks who identify as male, and be able to drive more people and encourage them to practice really that healthy lifestyle?
Yes, no, thank you. That's a great question. Yes, it is Men's Health Awareness Month. It is also Cancer Survivor Month. Myself, as a stage 4 testicular cancer survivor, men's health is very important and dear to my heart. I think, to touch on your point, is the stigma within the culture, right? We always actually encourage ourselves to not talk about it. Carito te ves más bonito, right? So we don't really share what it is that ways to help or how we feel that can contribute to mental health. Um, I remember myself, right, coming from my family, right? I'm first generation, so immigrant single mother. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, my mother really didn't know what sorts of outlets to go towards, how to be able to help out. Myself, I didn't know. I thought, when they said, "Oh, stage 4," I thought it was like 1 through 10, right? Because I really didn't have any clue on how that was. And so, you're able to have the conversations and be more vocal and be able to meet people where they're at. And that's what happened with me. There was an organization now that I mentor with called Emmanuel Angels that actually partner up a Latino with a Latino, or black with a black, or Asian with Asian. They tried to um, connect individuals to have those conversations, to be able to mentor them and guide them through these processes, as well as with their families, because it is very difficult within our culture to not have those conversations. Also, representation, right? I think only 7% of licensed physicians are Latinos, right? I think only 5% of those, we actually have like licensed therapists to be able to talk about mental health as well. Because when you're going through problems, when mental health is also a big issue that is really not talked about when it comes to men's health. So I think the biggest thing to be able to move forward is just having those conversations and meeting our people where they're at.
Thank you so much for sharing, Emmanuel. I know that's a very personal journey as we're talking about different diagnosis. So thank you for sharing and for your vulnerability. And like you mentioned, as you're in practice, also sharing, and being vulnerable yourself, as you mentioned, being open and having those conversations becomes so important. And in a traditionally stigmatized, communities like ours, where we don't really bring those conversations to the table. So that is something, part of what we're trying to do with our Hombres de HACE program, is being able to have that open space, that safe space where folks can come in and really talk about those experiences, bring them to the table, but also share with other peers that may be going through similar experiences. Could be relating to health, but also just in the workplace, thinking about the different barriers that men face in the workplace, the different expectations that are put upon, societal expectations, etc. And especially thinking about different cultural backgrounds, our Latino males, and what that looks like in terms of expectations and societal or gender norms. So thank you so much for sharing and being able to be open, as that's something that we definitely need to get better at in our community. Thinking about and mentioning our Hombres de HACE program, one of our topics for that program is going to be work-life integration, which connects back to and relates to health, wellness, as well as mental health that you mentioned, which is something we don't bring to the surface as much, although that has changed in the last couple of years. So I'm definitely glad we're having more of those conversations. So thinking about work-life integration and being able to have that conversation around health, around seeking it, around not being ashamed, not having that stigma surrounding that community. So, how do you think being able to have those open conversations changed your experience, as well as if you were to be a part of something like Hombres de HACE earlier on in your career, how would that have changed your trajectory or maybe impacted you early on in your career?
Yeah, a program like Hombres de HACE, I am very thrilled that we're able to launch this inaugural leadership program. If I would have had something like this when I was early in my career, I um, would have done different things in my life, and not, learned the hard way to a certain degree, especially when it comes to the work-life balance aspect, and having those conversations with mental health. There's just something about being able to be in a group with like-minded individuals, who look like you, who understand you, and who can help. It can You guys can help each other out, kind of like a team, right? And with a program like this, I really do feel that it's something that should have needed to be done sooner because of these conversations that we're having, and where we're at as a society now. But I'm so happy that we're having it now, and how companies and corporations and partners and our members are getting involved in supporting this initiative when it comes to being able to have these conversations, learning and growing within your professional career, and being able to take what you learned back into your companies and back into your life to be able to apply it not only to yourself, but to apply it to others with that knowledge. And that's how, again, we go back to reverting back, changing the culture and the stigma of being quiet, and just drawing more of that awareness and having those conversations.
Thank you for sharing. So, as you're listening to Manny, those of you joining us, our viewers, definitely consider, if you know anyone in your network, or if you yourself would benefit from our Hombres de HACE program. It's definitely, as Manny mentioned, going to be a space where you can continue to have those conversations and can really benefit you as a professional moving forward in your career. I want to elevate some comments that we have in the chat here as we continue the conversation. And also, please drop any questions that you all have for Manny in the chat, and we can ask those as well. So feel free to type in some of those questions, and I can take those as we're looking at the chat as well. So elevating some of the comments, folks mentioning not ignoring symptoms, certain symptoms that you have in relation to what you mentioned about diagnosis, being able to educate others, having social media campaigns, sharing personal stories, being able to be transparent. So definitely want to elevate some of those, needing a cultural shift in our society. So some of the things we've definitely been speaking on, and what we can do to be able to move that forward for sure.
Correct. Especially, testicular cancer, right? It's actually the most common cancer for males between the ages of 15 to 35. And that being said, it's really not talked about. And you do have some organizations that are starting to draw more awareness to the actual, the battle for cancer. Like, for example, the Chicago Hounds, which is our Chicago's new Major League Rugby team. They teamed up this year with an organization called Oddballs, who does custom garments for men and women, right? And then percentage of that goes to help fund testicular cancer initiatives to be able to draw awareness to the actual reason. But again, men, gentlemen, ages 15 to 35, make sure you guys are checking yourselves at least once a month. And if you're interested in knowing how to properly do it, please feel free to reach out to me. And I have plenty of pamphlets to be able to pass on to yourself or to your family members that might be in that age range that aren't quite thinking about it. Because like myself, I finished playing a rugby game. I thought I bruised a rib, and it was actually a tumor the size of a softball on the outside of my ribs, because it metastasized all the way up to my neck. So the sooner you catch it, the easier, the safer it is, and just to draw more awareness that way.
Thank you for your tips, Manny. And we definitely think about, how important it is to have those regular checkups, right? To have those regular touch points with your doctors at different parts of the year, once a year, whatever it is, depending on what you're checking on, to make sure that, like you said, you're able to catch things early. In having that thought about having those regular checkups, or going and seeking health services if you have a concern or pain or whatever it is, why do you think that there may be some barriers in doing that, particularly for Latino males or males in general, and being able to seek that out or make that appointment? Like, what do you think are some of the things that might be holding them back from doing something like that? I know we talked about stigma a little bit, but other things that you think might be those barriers.
Well, I think right now, the last numbers that I saw, about 20% of Latinos in America don't have health insurance. So that's about 12 million Latinos that don't have access to um, the opportunity to be able to get in those check-ins. One thing is, as we're having the conversations with our comadres, compadres, and they can't help out. There are a lot of resources out there that are free to be able to help them at least take their step in the right foot, even if it's not going to a doctor. At least there's a lot of specialists that can be able to. They do volunteer their time. They do a lot of pro bono work to be able to help individuals. But I think one of the biggest reasons is the over 12 million Latinos that don't have access to healthcare.
Yeah.
And also another stigma is, I think 40%, the last time I saw 40% of Latinos think that they can't prevent family history, right? So my mother had diabetes, so I'm going to have diabetes, so my kids are going to have diabetes, right? Or so that mentality of I'm going to have it, instead of how can I work on having a healthier heart? How can I work on having a healthier lifestyle? How can I work on preventative care? Right, having those conversations about preventative care, being able to communicate that with the community as well in their language, right? As far as that's also something that needs to be focused on is the language barrier as well.
Those are some great points. I can definitely relate to some of those. I know with my mommy papi, I'm always telling my papi, like, go make that appointment, have that checkup, and some of the things he was able to get healthcare through my mom and her job, but previously his employer has never offered healthcare. So that's definitely, unfortunately, it's a luxury to have that in this country. Any type of medical care or medication is a luxury in this country, unfortunately. So something we definitely have to change systemically, to not have those inequities, as well as thinking about the distrust, I would say, might be another factor as well. Historically, our communities have been negatively impacted through the healthcare system and other, systems in the US. And so that distrust is also there. It's like, are you just trying to take my money? Are you really going to tell me the truth? Are you really going to care about me as well as a person and not as another patient or number? So that also happens in this within the system as well, and those barriers to seeking care, I would say. So we do have a question I want to elevate in the chat here for you, from Nelly Cuenca, and she asks, how was mom during your care? Caregivers have so much on their plate. Very great point. So how do we empower caregivers? And you mentioned being raised by a single mother. So a little bit more about that caregiver.
Yes, my mother is a very strong 5'0" Latina woman. She would go to battle with Goliath for me, right? My mother, I would say it was also family, right? When the diagnosis happened, my family was very united, so we did have support from like my uncles and my grandfather to be able to carry on. But she did take FMLA. Her work was very understanding, so they did provide help as far as for her to be able to go back, because my mother was, at that time, she was back in Oklahoma, so she was able to go back and forth from Oklahoma to Chicago to be able to take care of me. And my family really stepped in and told my mother, hey, you need a break, hey, go home, hey, we'll take care of Emmanuel this round of chemotherapy, we'll take care of him this round of radiation. So it was more of a collective during that process. Again, going back to the organization Immerman Angels, they teamed up my mother, and also Live Strong at that time too, teamed up my mother with other Latinas who had children that have gone through cancer. She was able to ask certain questions that didn't even cross my mind. So it was finding those support systems and family support that was able to empower my mother to be able to help me get through the process.
That's a great point. And thank you for that question, Nelly. Definitely thinking about, even with healthcare that you mentioned earlier, insurance, seeking like any public clinics, assistance, so free services in your communities that can help both with caregiving and with expenses for things like healthcare become really important. We have another question from Angela. What were some things that you did to remain positive during treatments? So crucial.
Yeah, so at the time it was in my early 20s when I was diagnosed, and that's when I thought I was the best athlete in the world, and I thought I was going to go play rugby in Europe, right? So I looked at I looked at this situation as the flu, and I just need to get over it to be able to get back into training to be able to reach my goal. So that was one motivator. A lot of audiobooks. I'm a person of faith myself, so a lot of audiobooks that was very edifying to myself. And one of the things that did motivate me to commit positive was a lot of storytelling. My mother told me a lot of stories from my grandparents, my grandmother, and just my family history, and just understanding and having that knowledge that I didn't have of like what my family went through to be where we're at now and how I need to overcome this to be able to continue the legacy of our family was also a big motivator for me to be able to overcome this. And also I looked at it as I'm going through this season to hopefully be able to reach somebody else or help somebody else throughout the process because that's how life works, how I look at it. So that was another motivator to be able to kind of be an ambassador to other individuals that are going through it. Because I remember a lot of times everyone used to be. If you could ask my colleagues, I tend to always have a smile on my face and be a little over volume, right? But during chemo treatments, as everyone would be kind of sad and obviously down going the process. But once I got tagged up and we were laughing and having a good time. So again, that was one of the things that did motivate me, trying to help other people have smiles on their faces as I was going through this.
Thank you, Emmanuel, and thank you for the question, Angelica, in the chat. Definitely important, the importance of community, as you mentioned, and the importance of staying positive. On that note, our last question, as always in our cafecitos, is what are you hopeful for, or what's a positive story that gives you hope for this year?
I am hopeful for us to have 25 professional hombres sign up for our Hombres de HACE program. I am hopeful that this program is going to launch. It's going to be incredible. Again, we do have scholarship opportunities for nonprofit Latino males in the Chicagoland area. If you're one or if you know one, please, I encourage you to get involved and engage because, as you know, ASA has such a strong network with our Mujeres de HACE program that's been around. We celebrated the quinceañera this year about that. So let's just be able to elevate the hombres as well and united move the Latino community forward that way.
Thank you so much for sharing, Emmanuel, and thank you to our viewers for tuning in today. We will see you next time. Hasta luego, un cafecito con Ace.
Adiós.